So welcome everybody to our, gosh, Linda, how many of these are there? I don't remember how many we've done. February, March, April, May, June. This is our fifth Building a Great Life webinar. And my name is Molly Cole. I'm the Associate Director at the University of Connecticut Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. And we want to open by thanking once again the Connecticut Council on Developmental Disabilities for financially supporting this effort. So it's through a grant from the DD Council that we're able to offer this series of webinars. And we've been really excited both at the response and at the incredible panels. And we have another one tonight, these wonderful panels that have been giving us great information. Before I introduce our panel moderator and also a speaker, I do want to remind you of two things. First, the next sessions of this webinar series will be on housing, and they will be two sessions on housing back to back. So August 5th, and then 1 week later on August 12th, we will be talking about housing in Connecticut and more broadly, housing rights and fair housing issues. So we're very excited to be able to offer that. And then our final session will be September 1st in this series, and that will be a discussion of the policy implications of all of the content that we have covered over all these months. So we're really excited about doing that as well. We are in discussions now about possibly continuing a webinar series later in the fall, since the response has really been so great. So thank you all for joining us. And then I also want to remind you that we will be posting a link to the webinar evaluation in the chat towards the end of this session, and it will also be sent out to you via email right after the session. So please either fill it out in the chat, click on the link, and it will take you right to the evaluation, or when you get it in email, click on the link and it will take you in to fill out the evaluation. We really need those done in order to continue our funding. So please take the couple of minutes it's gonna be for you to fill it out. And with that, I want to introduce Jill Larmett. Jill is a member of the planning committee for our Building a Great Life series and has just done a phenomenal job in supporting this effort over all the months. Jill is the Disability Resource Coordinator for the North Central region of Capital Workforce Partners. A strong friend to people with disabilities, incredibly knowledgeable. And Jill is moderating the panel and is also presenting at the end of the panel. So with that, Jill, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Nice to meet you all virtually. For those of you I don't know, I would like to start out by welcoming Brian Smith, who gets the Dad of the Year award. For those of you who logged on a little late, he's in the middle of taking his daughter to dance practice. His daughter is a competitive Irish step dancer and getting ready to go to a national competition. So here he is dealing with his family life and being here with us to present on Department of Developmental Services. So it's great to have you, Brian. I thank you for taking time out of your busy day to do this for us. And Brian is the Assistant Regional Director for the Western region of DDS. So welcome, Brian. You can go ahead and take it away. I will bring your slides right up.
Perfect. Thank you, Jill, so much. And I apologize. This is a first for me. I'm doing it outside at the East Haven Gaelic Club because my daughter's got a 3-hour dance class tonight before she heads to Arizona next week. And there's a chicken or a rooster going off in the back behind me. So I apologize if you hear that. I've never had a chicken in the background before. So here we go. So as Jill mentioned, my name is Brian Smith. I'm an Assistant Regional Director for Department of Developmental Services, and I am based in the West region. I've been with DDS now for about 20 years. And before that, I did work in the private sector for 2 of our larger vendors in the West region. All my time has been spent in the family support division. And
Can you turn the volume down, please?
As a case manager, all the way up to where I'm at right now. So it's been a great journey, and I've seen a lot of positive changes, some struggles along the way. But one thing that I have noticed is the messaging, not only by our agency, but many agencies and other community stakeholders and families and school districts about the promotion of independence and the promotion of employment, living independently, being members of our communities, for all those folks that do get supported by DDS and beyond. So tonight I'm going to go over some really brief information based on our time frame. Jill, you can go to the next slide.
Oh, that's for grief group.
Could whoever please make sure you are on mute? We're getting some feedback in the background.
Sorry.
Please mute your lines. Thank you.
I do like
I'll let you guys go do your.
I do like to start out just reminding people about our mission of DDS, and this was adopted based on 2 administrations ago. And our current administration, Commissioner Sheff, maintained both the mission and vision of the agency that was established by 2 administrations before his appointment. And the mission of DDS is to partner with the individuals we support and their families, to support lifelong planning, and to join with others to create and promote meaningful opportunities for individuals to fully participate as valued members of their communities. And again, we're talking about all aspects. When you look at your community, everything from recreation to social to employment, which is why we're here tonight. Next slide, please. The vision is for all citizens supported by the Department of Developmental Services are valued contributors to their communities as family members, friends, neighbors, students, employees, volunteers, members of civic and religious associations, voters, and advocates. There's greater detail on this. There's a number of bullets that go below this actual statement. And I encourage you to take a look at that more on our website. But again, this was important because it does reference all those elements of our individual communities that we want to embrace and support, all the individuals we work side by side with and their families, increasing their contributions, participation, involvement in all those elements as all those different roles in their communities. Next one, Joe. For those who aren't connected with DDS, I always like to throw in the eligibility process really quickly. Back in the day, you actually had to make a phone call when I started and leave your name and address and phone number information, and they would mail it out to you because we tracked it. The agency tracked it at the request of the legislature, how many went out and how many came back in. Well, today's information age, we don't need to do that. You can go right on our website and you'll see this green checkbox up to the top left-hand corner of the slide. If you scroll down just a little bit, once you get on that homepage, you'll see it to the bottom left. It's a hyperlink. Just click right on that. Most individuals, you'll see those 4 bullets right in the middle that will bring you to that screen. Most are applying as the second bullet or the third bullet, and that would be someone with intellectual disability, formerly known as mental retardation, or second one was an application for someone with autism and no intellectual disability over the age of 3. On average, it takes about 2 to 3 months from start to finish, from the time it leaves your hands to the time you get a letter back from us indicating the outcome of the review of the eligibility packet. There is video, as you see there, both in English and in Spanish. The application, once you click on if you clicked on that second bullet on our website, and if you scroll down, you'll see the applications in PDF, both in English as well as Spanish. There's a fact sheet, all the contact information about the eligibility unit as far as mailing address, fax number, and email are also listed on that next page. You can go to the next screen. Whoop, one. We jumped one. There we go. Perfect. So what are the eligibility criteria for DDS? You'll see autism eligibility side by side on this slide. We do the eligibility for both DSS, Department of Social Services Autism Program, as well as our own eligibility, Department of Developmental Services, Intellectual Disability Services. We are the one-stop shop for the eligibility process for both of those. Why? One, the autism program was under us at one point in time before the legislature moved it over to the Department of Social Services. 2, it makes it easy for families and individuals to make the application if they don't know how their loved one or how they would fall in that determination. They don't have to do two different applications. It's one, it can be reviewed for both programs and a determination made based upon the clinical reports, education reports, and other health reports and documentation provided. So you're not going to apply to DDS and be told, no, you're not eligible. Now go apply to DSS autism. It doesn't work that way. We wanted a one-stop shop so you can come in, make the application, check off both boxes up the top if you're a loved one or if you have autism and you want to be considered for both programs. They will review you based on that information and make a determination on whether or not you're eligible for one or the other, or not eligible for either. You cannot be approved. You cannot be approved for both. It's one or the other, or it's neither. Okay. So for DDS's eligibility, we're looking at IQ of 69 or below with deficits in adaptive behavior. And we're looking at standardized IQ tests, standardized adaptive measuring, like CARS or an ADOS for the autism, but for this, Vineland is a very common one used for the adaptive behavior, a WISC, a WACE. Those are very common psychiatric reports. And then we also want to make sure it's done as you're a Connecticut resident and it manifests during the developmental period. Okay. And then after all that is said and done, you're just going to get all that information together. I just got to do one thing, so I apologize. Hold one moment. You're going to get all your information together, and then you are going to mail that to us to that address right at the second click that you do on our website. They will then receive it, they will then review it, and they will respond to you. Typically within 2 to 3 months is the average time frame. Once you do get that all into us, what ends up happening is if a determination is made and you are eligible for DDS services, you will be notified via letter. The file is sent to the local regional office. And then after that is done, you will then be put in contact typically with our regional helpline. They are the point for most new applicants, and they will provide you additional guidance, information, and resources that are pertinent to what services and supports you might need right now. If you're found eligible for the Autism Services Program, you will be told that you're denied for DDS and you're eligible for autism, and your file and everything will be transferred to DSS, and they will be in contact with you about next steps and
Dawn Santilli, join the meeting.
Who the contact people are on their end. If you are denied for both or denied for one and you're not satisfied with that outcome, you can submit an appeal, and the guidance will be in that letter that you receive from our agency. I encourage you to, if you want to do this appeal sooner or later, it can take a month to maybe even 3 to get that appeal on a calendar to be heard. So the faster you make that decision, the better. And you can go to the next slide. One last quick thing about the autism program is, the difference really with the autism in the DDS is that IQ. So we're 69 and lower with a deficit of adaptive behavior, and the autism program is 70 or greater. So the individuals will be testing out of the intellectual disability range. So that's really the big line in the sand. Both our programs are now open, 3 on up, age-wise, all Connecticut residents, doesn't matter where you live. So definitely, if your loved one feels though you might benefit from services from one of the programs, I encourage you to apply sooner rather than later and start building that relationship with us. Who we are as far as DDS is concerned, as I mentioned, I'm with the Individual and Family Support Division. I have colleagues in our private division. They help oversee a lot of the vendors that we contract with and a host of other things. We still have public services. Predominantly, it's all residential. Many of our day programs have closed and have been shifted over to our private provider network. And then we have our self-determination division. And a lot of those staff are case managers or brokers. There are some additional support staff, and our self-advocates also fall under the self-determination division as well. And those folks who are supported through that division are doing all self-direction of their services and supports. So they have the unique role in our system, and our behavioral services program also now falls under our self-determination division. All the ones listed under other is just the host of all the other infrastructure that we have in our agency. And there's so much more beyond what's listed there, but those are some of those critical ones. You can go to the next slide. Now, DDS services, really quickly, when you come in, if you're younger, you're going to come in through the family support division. So your point of contact is going to be our helpline. Each region has a helpline. They're staffed by 2, if not 3 case managers by job spec, and they are fielding calls and emails on a daily basis from individuals and families who that's their point of contact. They don't have a case manager assigned to them. So they are a critical resource to our communities in getting resources and information out to families and individuals. Don't be bashful. Call them, email them if you're connected with us, and that's your point of contact. Each of them has a manager who oversees the program, and those managers report to the assistant regional directors. So when in doubt, if you're not getting a response, there is a hierarchy, a chain of command that you can reach out to and try to get action taken for you. Our respite centers are now open. So we do offer respite. They are at 50% capacity just because all of them pretty much have shared bedrooms. So we're taking the reopening very seriously with the COVID protocols and making sure the proper social distancing, et cetera, is in place. There's 3 opened in the North region. Their 4th is pending being reopened, staffing issues. The 3 that are in the South region are now open, and 3 out of the 4 in my region, the West region, are open. So you can, if you've accessed them before, you can definitely do that now. Reach out to your case manager or the helpline staff, and they can do the referral for you. Again, because we're at 50% capacity, each of them typically would max out at 6 guests per weekend. So we're at 3 guests per weekend. So it's going to take us a little while to get people served, and we're hoping to get up to 75% or 100% capacity, hopefully in the fall, if not early winter. Great resource though. Our family support teams, there's a host of resources on them, and probably the one critical one, which I'm going to get to last, but I'm going to skip through all the other ones really fast, is we have nurses, we have psychologists, we have behaviorists, we have, excuse me, we did have education advisor, but she retired. She was the last one in our state system. She retired in January. We do have PT, OT, speech, and it really depends on your region of what complement you may or may not have access to. But we do try to pair up on resource referrals of the appropriate resource. So if one region needed assistance on an OT related matter, we may extend our OT virtually to provide assistance from another region. So always can think outside the box. The key ones are our transition advisors. We have 3 in each region. The North region, which is the greater Hartford area, hugging all the way to the Mass border. They are in the process of hiring their 3rd. They had a vacancy for a while, so they will be hopefully full within the next month. But those 9 staff are really critical to working with individuals and families as they are in those transition years in high school, as they migrate through the 14 to 15 to 16 into really the 18 to now 22nd birthday. So they are boots on the ground, working side by side with our helpline staff and case managers, connecting with families, connecting with the students and youth in our communities, and making sure proper transition plans are in order, but also working in collaboration with the districts and in our provider network on those future plans for adult services. And it could look like a traditional day program, but more and more we're seeing the growth due to the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, which Kathy may speak to. We're seeing a lot more youth exit school on an employment track than we did several years ago. COVID did a little bit of a hiccup with that, but we are seeing more and more of that being a trend, which is a great shift of mindset for not only our educators, our families, but also the students, as well as our own staff internally. So everybody's doing a great job with that. We do have family grants that are available. for disability related needs. And it could be for a piece of equipment when they're in adult services or in an employment program, something that might not be covered by insurance, but that technology or that adaptive device or whatever it might be might assist them with being more independent on the job. A family grant might be an opportunity to tap into to help with that, offset those expenses. Our case management, I won't get deeply into that, but we do have a host of case managers throughout the state in various roles in those divisions I referenced. But probably the last thing on this slide I want to talk about really quickly is how you can direct services. So as somebody comes out at 22 now, they can get resources from DDS if they're eligible. If they have their Connecticut Medicaid, we can assign funding based on their level of need. And you can go to a traditional agency and have all your services and supports provided by them. You can also have a combo and do some of that along with some self-direction, or you can do a full self-directed model where you or your parent or a loved one might be the employer on record, and they're hiring all the staff and they develop a program Monday through Friday. And it could incorporate some of the employment, could incorporate career planning, it could incorporate doing job search type things as well. So there's a variety of different services and how you can purchase those services in our system. And more families due to COVID have gone the self-directed route, just because the young lady earlier before we started, there's not enough staff. Many of our agencies are down staffed significantly right now. So self-direction, a lot of families were forced into doing it and are finding great benefit to it. And others just hopped on the self-directed model right away, in part to keep their family unit safe throughout the COVID pandemic. They just made the decision, we're going to hire these 3 or 4 people. They're the ones that are going to be coming and going. I don't need staff rotating in and out of our house and create potential exposure risks. So we've seen an increase in self-directed services. You can do a next slide, please. Now, Connecticut is an employment first state, and our agency is one of those agencies who is on that. We are focused on employment. If you go to our website and use the topics A to Z, you can look at day in employment services. Click on that.
I found it.
A host of different resources on there that you can click through. There's some for individuals, there's resources for families, there's information for providers, there's information for our own staff. So I encourage you to take a look at that and navigate the website for that. But we talk about employment on a daily basis. Our case managers are talking about that with the families and individuals on their caseloads. I'm talking about it with my staff. I'm talking about it in presentations like this or other stakeholder presentations. It's a constant messaging. Our transition advisors are doing it as well. And I'm working on a variety of different state collaborations like Transition Task Force or the Community Practice on Transition. Those are multi-stakeholders, multi-state agencies and school districts and beyond, who are all coming to the table together and getting the same messaging and really pushing proper transition planning, effective transition planning, and transition planning that has employment built into it as well. You can go to the next slide. This is kind of just a sampling, and I'm going to kind of go through this a little quickly. We have now with the court district, the U.S. District Court ruling on New Haven, age 22. We've had a shift. So families who are on this call who might be approaching that, or maybe a year from now approaching that, we had to shift our thought process. We had everybody plan for to start sometime after July 1st in a new fiscal year after they graduate. Well, now it's 300 to 400 individuals graduate every single year from their schools and come into DDS's service system. We now have 300 to 400 birthdays that we have to really monitor to make sure that on the 22nd birthday, there's a plan that can be executed for each of those graduates. So there's not a gap in service. And a lot of that could be dependent on state budgets being approved and accessing of funding. But we now have to do planning differently alongside U.S. families, alongside U.S. Students exiting school, and our provider network just as much. So we all have a different mindset. This is really the first big full year of it without COVID being a big variable. So that's something we're working on. It's strategic planning going alongside that. And with that 22nd birthday, we had to shift our planning efforts and our engagement and conversations with the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services, who Kathy's representing here tonight. And we work collaboratively with them. I personally meet with the area director on a monthly basis, reviewing every single graduate who's coming out in the fiscal year, seeing what pathway they're on, seeing who's refused work, who's not interested in work, and who is on that employment path, that track, who's going to go into the adult vocal rehab system. And then we would work collaboratively with them on the handoff to make sure there's proper supports and services in place so that job is maintained. So there's a lot of behind the scenes and in front work happening to really do the promotion of employment for as many of Connecticut residents coming out of schools who are tied to DDS, who are interested in work, have the ability to work, or maybe they're not ready yet, they need some skill enhancement. So what service might be a good option for them to build those skill sets and then go back to our friends at BRS and really hone in on looking for that competitive employment. So if you look at the support system, support service options, we have competitive employment, we have individual supportive employment. What's the big difference? The individual supportive employment and competitive employment are relatively similar in nature. However, there might be a difference in level of service that's needed to maintain that job. So, it might be the number of hours versus in how many staff hours that somebody might need to be successful on a job. Group supportive employment, we're seeing more and more kind of fade away. There was a big push to do minimum wage for all our group supportive employment programs. And so there was kind of a divide where some folks went into more traditional programming based on their interests, and others were pushed along the pathway for employment because they had the skills. They just needed to have some enhancements to some of those skill sets and decrease reliance on some of that staff engagement. So we've seen some great successes with the downsizing of our group supportive employment, so folks going into more competitive and individualized employment options. Our individualized day gives that just that. It's one-on-one service, and folks can have a vocational flair or they can have a non-vocational flair. And usually when it's vocational based, it's somebody who has a great job in the community. They're being paid by the employer, decent hours, minimum wage or greater, but their needs, their behavioral needs or their medical needs or another identified need warrants having an enhanced staff, more one-on-one staff to be there to support them on the job so that they can be successful. They have the skill sets to be successful and do the employment. It's these other barriers that may impede that success. So by having that one-on-one with them allows them to be successful on the job and be supported properly. So we see that in the individualized day vocational kind of used in that capacity. There's some pre-vocational services. Those are kind of becoming fewer and fewer. So in time, if I come back and talk to you in 2 years or 3 years, that might not even be on this list anymore. One that did come on about 3.5, 4 years ago is this employment transition services. So young men and women coming out of school districts have an opportunity that if they're not ready for competitive employment yet, they have an opportunity to go into a program model like that. And it's a 3-year technically program where they would work on enhancing those independent skills on the job. All the different skill sets that are necessary to be successful with limited or no supports on a job. So that program model, it has been rebranded. It used to be transition services. Now it's employment transition services. And it's also being reorganized in a fashion that would promote advancement over the 3-year period of time. So that there's benchmarks for each young man or young woman in the program to achieve as they go through, and that way they're making progression through those 2 or 3 years program time frame. And for some, it might be faster. They're in and out in a year and a half, and knocking on the door of our friends at the BRS to start, looking at employment options and developing an employment plan with them. We never go away. We're in the behind the scenes. We're working alongside our funding may stall for a bit while BRS is involved, but we're never off the table. We're never away from that conversation with you and your BRS counselor. We're always there because we're going to be there for that long-term support after the job is secured. And then we have senior supports. And then for those who are done with senior supports, we got the good old retirement. We have many folks who just are done with doing day services once they get to a certain point in their life, and just want to enjoy life without having to get up and go to work or go to a day program. They just want to stay home and do stuff in their community and retire and live their life that way from the rest of their years with us. So next slide. These are just some resources in the that are built into this PowerPoint that are really key things. So the eligibility, our family website, a former colleague who's now retired, Robin Wood, was one of the critical thinkers behind that, and alongside a host of other people in our agency. I participated in that as well, in developing a family website and embedding life course icons and methods and messaging all into that family website. So if you're familiar with Life Course and you go to our family website, you will see a host of different things that you will recognize that are Life Course, person-centered planning model specific. Family Connection, Life Course itself, if you go to that eligibility box, you'll see Life Course as well as Self-Determination, two other boxes right next to the eligibility. There's an enormous amount of information there. We have now embedded Life Course into our individual plans. So you will see it, the personal profile, you'll see the star, you'll see the trajectory, all built into somebody's individual plan now. So the messaging around the use of Life Course is throughout our agency. And we presently have a host of, I want to say 12 or 13, I think it is, administrative level staff, which includes myself and our commissioner actually as well, who are going through the Life Course Ambassador training. So many moons ago, we did ambassador training. Then we did another recent ambassador training. And a lot of the messaging was, it was always the bottom. There's always people on the bottom who are going through these types of trainings. And we had a lot of push to get a top-down approach. So we have a lot of people in critical positions in our Hartford office and in the regions who are now going through the ambassador training. So the messaging can come from both sides, both ends of our agency, and an understanding. So when we're arguing from the region about an individual need with somebody in our business office who's now sat through the Life Course, or their supervisor sat through Life Course and shared information, there's a different perception of how, what we're advocating for and what resources we need and why we need it. So it's a great experience. If you ever have the opportunity, I encourage you to do it. But seeing the administrators on there, it's in hearing the feedback and the thought process and the thinking that's going on from our waiver unit to our commissioner's office to our training and quality improvement who are represented. It's really impressive. Employment day service link there, qualified provider list. You can go on that. It's updated regularly, and you can see who in Connecticut is offering what services. It's not the most easy resource to navigate, but you can on our website also navigate based on town, who provides services in your town. You can also look up provider profiles. So if you want to learn about, we'll say Marrakesh, because I'm kind of in their area, or Kennedy Center, or Ability Beyond, or Arc of New London, you can go on there and look at each of those individual provider profiles as well and get some more information. Transition resources, we've done a host of resources and information that are up on our website now, compliments to our transition advisor staff who are trying to get information into the hands of districts and families and other stakeholders about the importance of what to think about 18 and beyond, and what their role is in all of this, and there's so much more information, benefits to supportive decision making, to guardianship, to conservatorship. So there's a host of different information and resources there. Self-advocacy, and self-determination. our Employment First overview, career planning, another great resource that's available to individuals we support in our provider network as well. That rolled out, I want to say, probably almost 7 years ago. And a lot of folks have taken advantage of using that career planning model to look at outside of the individual plan, using that model to sit down and develop a career plan around somebody who's interested in doing work, who might not be a candidate for the services through BRS. So it's a kind of our own internal system for those who might not meet that eligibility criteria for BRS. The other one, I think, two pieces I want to talk about is, we do have customized employment. It's another big initiative. And the other one is our project search. And I know Sandy's on here and coordinator of one of our project search programs. So they are another great resource to youth and young adults in our communities to get that experience of being in a host environment, being supported by an agency, and having the opportunity to navigate through a variety of different employment opportunities. One of them, there's several that are hospital based. We have Mohegan Sun is another one. Norwalk Community College is another one. So depending on where you live, there may be a program in town, there may not be a program in town. But we're working alongside those programs as well on youth who want to go into those, and if it's their final year in school and they're transitioning over to us halfway through the program, we're working through those logistics. So don't panic, just have a conversation with us. We want everybody who is interested in going into those programs to maximize the opportunity, and we'll work around how the funding would work, et cetera. Just let us know. We'll talk about it, but that's another fantastic opportunity to kick the tires on, take a look at. But I think this is my last slide, and I just wanted to wrap up that, when you go back to our mission and our vision about being members of our communities, and how many of us have jobs in our communities or jobs that affect our immediate communities, employment is critical. It can change somebody's life, and it can also provide a wonderful opportunity to build relationships that they may never have had an exposure to be able to build just through natural consequence. So if you get a job, you're going to start having engagement with not only the people that job may support or serve, but also your coworkers. And it just gives them more and more opportunities to build those natural supports and relationships with people in their community. And then there's the financial benefit of having a wonderful job in your community, making a meaningful wage, and feeling that sense of independence and empowerment as well. So we're really messaging employment. It gives so many different opportunities for somebody to enhance, start the building or enhance their current life. And, we really, really, really are messaging this through our case managers and beyond. So I know I didn't hone in completely on employment. There's a host of different services that are out there, but really take a look at our website, look at the different services and supports, take a look at our employment idle videos on our Self Advocates website of different things people have been doing over the years in their own employment opportunities in their communities, and hear their success stories and the smiles on faces and the happiness that you can see in their presentations about their jobs. It's really impactful. I've always told teachers, use that as a resource. If you needed to, go to our website, use it as an educational resource for you, and show those videos during one of your transition classes. You all can do the same for your loved ones, for yourself, or for your coworkers, or whoever. So they're out there. So take a look. I think I might be well over time, so I apologize to Kathy and Jill, but I think that was my last slide.
So Brian, this is Molly, and I'm going to just interrupt real quickly. There are a couple of what I think are going to be quick questions in the chat, if you could address before we move on.
That's fine.
I know that there are some others that we are going to hold till the end, but there are some that were specific. Perfect. So Stacy asked how to find out where she is on the autism waiver list, and companion to that, Tom asked if you could comment on the wait list for autism services.
Okay, so And I apologize, I had to go off camera because it started to rain. I jinxed myself, so I had to go undercover during this presentation. So I was walking and talking through it all. So the answer, I don't work for DSS, but we do have interfacing quite regularly. First I'll answer the waitlist piece. So the waitlist is probably about 1,800 individuals right now in Connecticut. That was the last number I got about a month and a half ago. They were hopeful, and I have not had an opportunity myself to take a look at the approved state budget. They were hopeful to get some new resources put into their program to expand their waiver to start chipping away at that number. So that's that. If you go to our website and go to topics A to Z and go to A and you'll scroll down, I think autism is the last hyperlink under A. If you click on that, it'll bring you right to DSS's Autism Services webpage, and all the information about their eligibility, what their eligibility criteria is, because it does obviously differ from ours. Some of the services and supports, if you are found eligible, and also get resources from them that you can take those resources and purchase. And there's contact information. There's a link for contacts. I encourage anybody who is on the DSS autism waitlist, contact Kathleen, contact Nate. They're great resources to families who are waiting on the wait list. If you are getting services, then they have case managers, and that will be their point of contact. But Nate and Kathleen are exceptional with finding resources, getting information, and helping families navigate some of the complexities of services in Connecticut, state benefits, federal benefits, you name it. They are a wealth of information to families. So I would encourage anybody to use them. Tell them Brian sent them. Go ahead. You don't get any discounts or anything, but they will know who I am, because I worked with Kathleen many moons ago. And that wait list is about 1,800. And we are messaging apply, 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 apply. Don't hesitate to apply. Get your name on the waiting list. And one day the name will be called. One day legislators and the governor will infuse more money and hit more families and the individuals on that wait list. But if they don't know about you, all they see is 1,800 in Connecticut. And that number is not accurate by far. So
definitely not. One other question from Patricia Stavola. She wants to know if a family is having difficulty finding a day service program and they switch to self-directed, can they continue to look for day service and switch back?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. We use what they call portability. So if a family's with agency X and, it's not working out, no matter what they've done through team process, et cetera, they can portabilize that money through a request process and go to agency Y. And that happens all the time. Or not happy, we can't find a provider, they can portabilize the money and put it into a self-directed model program. And they can still continue to look for a provider while getting services built into the array of supports that are available through the self-directed model. I just need to let them know that we are now doing EVV, electronic verification, for visits. So it takes about 2 weeks to get individuals set up, in the self-directed model. So if you're going to make that transition, you got to do that and know that there's going to be a 2-week period for the fiscal intermediary who's going to get the funds to work with you to process all those people that you want to hire as direct support professionals. And then they have to agree to use the electronic verification system. So there's another layer right now, and that's a federal action that we had to implement here in Connecticut. So we have done a fantastic job. Our staff have been amazing, our fiscal intermediaries as well, to get most everybody on that system by July 1st. So there is a little bit of a process. So speak to your case manager about what lead time, stay with that agency, but move over to that self-directed model while still looking for it. And then once you're approved to go and hire everybody and they're in place and they're just set to go, you can start getting services through the self-directed model. So just a little extra planning that needs to happen.
Thank you.
And that could be for work too. So you can hire somebody to go to the Department of Labor or Career Center or a library and do research and try to find a job and an employment model, or look for volunteer work. And you would be the employer in hiring somebody to do all those activities rather than getting it from an agency.
All right. I know there are a few other questions, but in the interest of time, I'm going to hold those till the end and go back to Jill. But thank you so much, Brian. That was really a great overview. Thank you.
Thank you.
That really was,
Appreciate
Brian. You're a rock star. Thank you so much. Every time I hear you, I learn 2, 3, 4 new things. So thank you for taking the time to be here. And now to move on, it gives me great pleasure to have Kathy Marchione with us. She's the Education Bureau Chief for the State of Connecticut Department of Aging and Disability Services. And I can't believe we actually have her here tonight. Thank you for being here. And I am going to share my screen with you. And let you take it away.
Hey, well, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me. It is my pleasure to be here. It's as you all know, it's very hard to present when I'm literally standing in a room by myself, looking at my computer screen. I don't know who's there. I don't know how people respond. So I'm just gonna do what Brian did. I'm gonna deliver information. I will not be able to monitor the chat while I'm speaking. So at the end, I can answer anything that comes up. Happy to do that. So my first slide is just like Brian. It's our mission and our core values. Let me explain ADS and BRS, because for those of you who've been around a little while, like I have, BRS has been known as BRS for a long time, but we have been in many different agencies over the years. And the agency we are presently in is called Aging and Disability Services. This is the same agency, very close to the same agency that was formerly Department of Rehabilitation Services. BRS is one bureau within the State Department of Aging and Disability Services. And ADS provides a much wider range of service. We provide services for seniors, services for individuals who are blind. There's a bureau that makes disability determinations for Social Security. We work for the bureau that is the vocational rehabilitation program, or what some people think of when they think of BRS. So I'm going to focus on that portion. I can answer questions about other ADS programs, but I won't have the level of in-depth knowledge as I do about BRS. Next slide. So I think if there's one message I can leave all of you with tonight, it's that we are open for business. We were, during pandemic, we were closed. Our offices, I should say, were closed for several months. We were open, providing services virtually the whole time. In October, we opened by appointment only in our offices. As of today, actually, I'm excited to announce that all of our offices are staffed in person. Our bigger offices are staffed in person every day now. Our small local offices that have many less staff in them are staffed several days a week. Another piece of good news is we are no longer in an order of selection. Some people on this call may know what that is on this meeting. It is that we are part of, Brian mentioned Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, WIOA. We are part of that federal act. The Federal Vocational Rehabilitation Program, which is BRS in the state, and BESB for individuals who are blind, is part of WIOA. One of our rules under that is if we do not have enough money to serve all individuals who are eligible, we have to serve those who have the most significant disabilities first, and then other people go on a waiting list, and then we serve them as funds become available. In Connecticut, we were in an order of selection just a few years ago. We are out of it, so now we can serve anyone who's eligible for our program, and I'll talk about that in some more detail on another slide. We did switch during pandemic also to many services being available remotely, which was new for us. I don't know if it's the same in all of state government, but we were not remote. Our staff did not work remotely. We didn't provide services remotely, and now we do, and that has been very, very well received by many of our consumers, many of our vendors. As we all know, Connecticut is really strong in public transportation. So for individuals who don't drive, not having to come to our offices or not having to come even to our providers' offices for services other than the actual job itself, of course, has been a big benefit. And my other most important message is right now there are jobs all over Connecticut, good jobs, lots of jobs, full-time jobs with benefits. I'm sure all of you see in your communities, we're used to seeing help wanted signs on some of the businesses that are always hiring. We're now seeing them on businesses that literally never hire. I live in a small town, and there's some small businesses here that they never have to have a sign up because they treat people so well that they never have to look for employees, and they're looking. So if anyone's on this call who's not working or hasn't worked in a long time and has a disability and is thinking about kind of dipping a toe in now, please come see us. This really is the right time. Next slide. We do partner closely with just about everyone. With schools, as Brian talked about, when students who have any disability, so students who have either a 504 plan or an IEP, when they are graduating, they connect with us. I'll explain our school-based program when I get to that slide, but we do help students move from, I'm sorry, I just saw a pop-up about someone being told they were too old for BRS. No, we do not have an age limit. You just have to be old enough to legally work and old enough and not too old that you're ready to retire. So we have served people who are in their 80s who are still working. We partner closely with lots of businesses. We have some programs that we call industry-specific training and placement programs where we partner with businesses and the training happens right on site, and then people move into generally full-time positions in those businesses. We partner with every public school, high school in the state. We have a liaison counselor to every school to help those students who have any sort of disability transition to whatever is going to be next after school. Our public partnerships, when I listen to Brian speak or listen to Jill speak, I realize one of the strengths in Connecticut, maybe because it's such a small state, but a lot of us in all these different agencies, DMS and DOL and DSS, we've worked together most of our careers and we know each other. So when a problem comes up, almost all of us can pick up the phone and call somebody. I can call Brian and say, hey, there's this issue happening in another region. Who do I speak to? And he will always be able to make that connection happen. So those relationships, while they are on paper and they're legal, they're also very personal in the state. We know each other and we can break down silos because of those relationships. These partnerships do allow for expanded services for our consumers and for all the others, because it allows us to do things that any one agency or any one budget would never be able to do in a meaningful way. Customized employment is a great example that Brian started touching on. That's an exciting program that we hope to be rolling out this summer. And it's a partnership with DDS, BRS, and the State Department of Ed. And without it being a partnership like that, I don't believe it would ever have been able to achieve its full potential and been sustainable. Whereas having all three state agencies who felt they would like to have a role in that at the table will make the model sustainable. As budgets ebb and flow, we'll be able to continue that. Next slide, please. So let me tell you about Level Up. Under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which passed, now it's 7 years ago, one of the rules that went into place, one of the laws for the Public Vocational Rehabilitation Program, again, BRS and BESB in this state, is that we had to start spending 15% of our entire federal budget. And let me explain, our funding source is we are just about 80% federally funded and 20% state funded. So our federal budget is most of our budget. The law said that we had to start spending 15% of our federal budget on services for high school students, and this specific list of services only. Now, the interesting thing about that is, while we all agree, well, I do, I hope everybody agrees with me, that was a very, very good law, that getting involved younger with students and helping them move toward employment in a more meaningful way and putting resources into that, like Brian said, increases the outcomes when they're leaving high school and the expectations. For us, it was tricky, and actually it was how we ended up in an order of selection again, because those were not services we had even been allowed to provide or pay for before WIOA. So now suddenly, not only did we have to, but we had to transition money from other sources that we were paying for other things to do. So now that's fully ingrained. We have 10 level up counselors around the state. And for anyone who is interested, anyone who's maybe from another state on this call, I'm not sure, or has more of a national perspective, what we call level up is called pre-employment transition services in the law and around the country. So if you hear pre-ETS, or some people say PETS, we don't like that, or pre-employment services, it is in Connecticut, we call it level up. And these are the services we provide. Our counselors are in the high school, they are going into the high schools whenever they can. Of course, the last year they haven't been allowed to go in, but going back in, they're in their offices, they're working with students to provide these services. One of the things I'm really pleased about this year, that if you had asked me in December, I would have said no way we could do it, is we have it looks like it's gonna be about 500 high school students who are gonna be in jobs this summer, summer jobs through the Work-Based Learning Experience program. And we're doing that in partnership with our private agencies we contract with, community rehabilitation programs, as well as the workforce development boards. And our community rehab providers have been doing this for years with us. The workforce boards have been like in little pockets here and there around the state, again, where there were relationships, but this year they're all doing it in a very systematic fashion. And just between the workforce boards alone, they're serving more than 150 of our students and helping them get into jobs. Next slide. I forgot, I was so excited about this. I made a whole slide about it. We had to set up a system to support students in the event that they needed it. Now, the workforce boards have done summer work experiences for students, not necessarily students with disabilities only, but all students for, I'm gonna say more than 50 years. It has been a very, very long time. So working with teenagers is not new to them. We believed, and we might be wrong, but we believed that some of our students might need more support than they were used to providing. So in the event that that happens, and they start the jobs next week, so we're gonna find out, but we have our staff trained and ready, our BRS counselors, to go out and provide the on-site support. Something, some of them haven't done in a long time because it's not in their actual role as a VR counselor. Many of them had done that work earlier in their career. So it's kind of going back to the future for them. And we're very excited about this. A lot of these kids have been in virtual or hybrid models of school all last year. And it's been a hard year for everyone. And they can get out and work and be out in the community like Brian talked about, supporting their communities and earning a paycheck. Next slide. Okay. This is the eligibility for adult services. For the Level Up program for the high school students, you just have to have an IEP or a 504 plan. For adult services, we have eligibility criteria. None of it has anything to do with money. So we don't have a financial means test of any kind. Person has to have any sort of a physical or mental impairment. The impairment has to be a barrier to employment, and they have to require the services we offer to obtain or maintain or advance in employment. We do that through what we call an individual plan for employment. It would look and feel similar to an IEP, except the difference is the goal is employment. So we can provide a very, very wide range of services, but they all are to lead only to competitive employment in the community. We use our rehab counselors, all of our BRS counselors are master's level rehab counselors, which means they have been trained specifically in career counseling for individuals with disabilities. And they'll use all kinds of aptitude testing, as well as being aware of the labor market in their communities or the communities the person wants to work in, and help write a plan together with the individual for what services they need to reach the right kind of goal that is attainable in where they want to live. Next slide. Here are some of the adult services we offer. You know, one of the ways I tend to describe BRS, which makes it different than DDS, is that DDS serves a very, very narrow range of individuals, but provides a tremendously wide range of services to those individuals. We serve a very, very wide range of individuals, but provide only what someone needs to get to work and stay working or advance in their work. So here are the sorts of services. You know, of course, the vocational counseling we provide ourselves. A lot of these other services we contract. Obviously training, you know, if someone's going to college, we can help with that. If someone needs help interviewing, or if they need job coaching support, if they need any kind of adaptive equipment to be able to succeed in work. We sometimes even modify people's vehicles or homes. We have a cap, a financial cap on those services, but we do modify. For example, if someone had been working and sustained injury that they then had to begin to use a wheelchair and needed to be able to get out of their home to go to work, we might help them install a ramp. We might modify their vehicle so that they can drive back and forth to work if they don't live in a place where there's transportation that would be available for that. We help lots of individuals who have hearing loss with hearing aids if their insurance doesn't cover it. That's another change in Connecticut. We used to do a lot more of that than we do now because insurance has started finally, after all these years, covering hearing aids to some degree. So, but we do when insurance doesn't cover or when it's really not available to someone. Let me touch back on education because that's, a lot of times people have questions about that. We help people to get into the best job they can get into, that they realistically can get into. So if someone says, you know, you have a high school student who has been taking college preparatory classes, wants to become an accountant, applies to Central Connecticut, gets into their accounting program, well, that's good enough for us. And we would say, you know what, there's certainly accounting jobs in this community you live in, and we certainly know you need a bachelor's degree for that. So let's take a look at how we can support you in this and then support you in getting the accounting job when you finish. On the other hand, somebody says, I'm in high school, my family owns a landscaping business and I intend to work in it. I'm already working in it, I'm really good at it, it's a successful business, that's what I'm gonna do, but I really, really love music and I wanna go to college for music because it's my passion. BRS would not support the music. It has to be for what you're going to be doing for work. Jill, do you want me to save questions for the end?
You know, if there are some you can do that are short, that would be fine, but some of these might be a little longer. So.
Okay, you know, that was my last slide anyway.
All right. So I'm going to scroll up because there were a few that came earlier, okay. And one that Lisa Nee has asked that I want to see if we can answer to.
While you're looking, I'm just going to point out on this last slide, that's our website, but the numbers there are my direct numbers. So please, if you have questions, my role is I oversee our field offices, our policy, and our operations. So if you go to an office and you don't have the kind of experience that you think you should, or you're having trouble finding the right office, or any of these sorts of things, please feel free to call my office number, call my work cell phone number. I'm happy to take those calls. I'd much rather solve it than have somebody have had a bad experience and then just think that's what BRS is. So please feel free to reach out. Jill, go ahead.
Wow, that's an incredibly generous offer, Kathy. And you guys, that's a pretty special offer. So that's amazing. So the question from Lisa Nee, and you may or may not know this, but Lisa wants to know what House Bill 6121 means for people with disabilities. She says it's supposed to incentivize business to provide training programs, other modified interviews, and reserve market rate full-time jobs for persons with disabilities. The deadline to develop the plan is September 1st and implementation by July 2022. Does anybody know any more about that? Or do you have any comment on that?
I don't.
Okay, so we have to do some digging. Lisa, we will dig around and see what we can find on that. Ali asks, you talked about the age limit. Monica wants to know if there's a long waiting list for Level Up.
No, in fact, we have no waiting list for any programs at all.
Okay. Kayla wants to know how to get hooked up with Level Up.
Mm-hmm. If you, Kayla, or you, either yourself or if you have a son or daughter who is in high school, is 16 or older, there's a Level Up counselor assigned to that school. And there's a couple of ways you can, the school, you know, the guidance counselor or the transition coordinator should know.
Okay. And then Patricia Stavola asked if there's a limit on job trials, because she apparently had an experience a few years ago where her son couldn't do another job trial. And so she just wondered what the protocol was for that.
Yeah, good question. We are of the belief that the only way to find out if you can, how well you can work and where you're going to work and what's going to be the most successful is by working. You know, we are not of the belief that lots of paper and pencil tests will necessarily give that information. So we do trial work experiences where we work with a nonprofit to develop a site in the community where someone can try out a job. And sometimes they're not the right fit. Sometimes the person doesn't do well, not because they can't do that job, but because it really was the wrong fit. And we try another and we try another. And the answer is, it's not as if our law gives us a number limit, like you can only do 4 trial work experiences. But if the work experiences did seem to be the right fit and still we couldn't help the person to succeed, then we probably wouldn't continue to do the same thing that wasn't working. What does happen sometimes, and obviously I don't know the circumstance you're talking about, but what we do find sometimes is someone will occasionally have their heart really, really set on a certain kind of work. And it just may not be the kind of work that they're going to be able to secure employment in. And that is, I mean, that's true for a lot of us, right? And so that sometimes happens where we try and try and try with that and then say, we can't help you succeed in this kind of work. Can we look at something else?
But you will find another job trial. I guess that's the question. It's just maybe in a different setting.
Generally, yes, but there would be a limit. At some point, we would say, we cannot figure this out. It's extremely rare, but I have seen it happen. So I wouldn't want to say that no matter what, there would always be another, because there could be a point where we could say, we can't, there's nothing else we can do, but it's very rare.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. There's some other discussion in the chat, but I think in the interest of time, we should move on. So I'm going to go back to Jill. Kathy, thank you very much for all of that information and for spending time with us.
And I'll take a look in the chat and see if there's anything I can answer.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. And thank you for mentioning the partnership. I really want to try to drive that home that, yes, we do know each other across agencies. So we might not have an answer, but we know a person who does have the answer. So thank you for sending that message. And, you know, just speak on behalf of Capital Workforce Partners, we're thrilled with our summer youth employment partnership. Very exciting. I've been a part of the planning stage, and so that's very exciting. So I will try to get through the American Job Center as quickly as I can. So don't mind me if I speak too fast, folks, just for the sake of time. Sorry.
Where I wanted to go. There we go. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
All right, so you're up.
All right, so Molly already introduced me, Jill Larmett, Disability Resource Coordinator with Capital Workforce Partners, and I am here to speak to you about the American Job Center system. And I'll give you an overview of both our youth and adult services. I'll let you know how to access the services and our centers, and I'll provide some resource links at the end of the presentation. So let's go right into it. What is the American Job Center? the American Job Center, or the AJCs, as we often refer to them, are not just buildings. They're actually a system that's built on partnerships of organizations, including the Department of Labor, Vocational Rehabilitation, BRS, BESB, DDS for that matter, and educational institutions. And we work as a team to provide seamless and effective workforce services to individuals of working age to address the career readiness and training needs of people looking for work. And we serve employers to help them find skilled workers. Okay, next slide, please, Molly. Thank you. So before I go on, I just want to mention that there are 5 workforce boards, 5 workforce regions, I should say, in our state. So each of the regions has a dedicated workforce board, and those are the different boards that are just shown on this slide here. But the boards are an important part with the Department of Labor and the American Job Center system, because they're the ones who set the priorities for employment and training programs, and they implement those programs. So we're overseeing a lot of the programs and services that are happening under that American Job Center roof. Okay. I think that's all I need to say. We can go to the next slide, please. All right. So I'm going to dive right into just highlighting, and I will go rather quickly, but I am going to highlight some of our youth and young adult programs. Okay, so we'll start with Youth Build. Youth Build is a program for youth ages, I should say young adults, ages 17 to 24, who are low income and left high school. And in this program, individuals will have the opportunity to earn their high school diploma or a GED while gaining occupational skills training and certifications in the construction sector. So this program is only available in North Central, Northwest, and Southwest regions. And then, as Kathy had already shared with you, we do have the Summer Youth Employment Program, and that provides opportunities for youth to gain paid work experience, and it is available in every region. So this program is offered to in-school youth as well, and the types of job, they vary based on the employer participation in the region, coupled with the youth's experience and or interests. So the jobs could be in an office setting, a retail or food setting, even in public libraries, we've placed individuals. You know, we had some individuals go around with a civic engagement project trying to encourage people to vote, getting people to register to vote during the election last year. And so it could include administrative work, customer service work, graphic design. We had a graphic designer last year, or food and nutrition services, to name a few. So the programs also include job readiness preparation. So they'll work on that resume building, that interview technique, that the soft skills of getting and keeping a job. And generally the services run July 1st through August 28th. So as Kathy mentioned, you know, employment is starting next week for our summer youth program this year. The participants are expected to work all of the work weeks. So if summer vacations are part of people's families' plans, then this may not be the best fit because you are expected to attend every week. This is a first come, first serve program, and the slots fill up extremely quickly. So I advise you to start checking your local workforce development board websites in March or early April, because oftentimes the enrollment ends in May. So it was supposed to end May 1st, but we extended our enrollment this year till the 15th, but it does end in early May. So sign on early. So now I'll talk about the Job Corps programs. Job Corps is offered in Hartford and New Haven, and they offer both residential and non-residential options for education and training for individuals ages 16 to 24 years old. And this does have an income eligibility component. And also if it's a minor, a parent or guardian must sign a consent form for them to participate in the services. But Job Corps offers training in recognized industry credentials, as well as the opportunity to help people get a high school diploma, a GED if they have dropped out of school, help them with a driver's license, tutoring, or other supports. Training right now is including certifications in manufacturing, automotive, hospitality, food service, construction, information technology, healthcare, and transportation. So moving right on for the sake of time, the South Central region has a program called Project CEO. And this program is open to individuals ages 16 to 24 who live in South Central Connecticut, and that's the greater New Haven, Middlesex County area. This program is for youth who are not currently attending school or college. And what will happen is the participants will develop a plan for success. And they'll practice their interviewing skills, they'll create resumes, but they're going to have access to a paid work experience, on-the-job training, or other skills training through this program. So each of these programs may have eligibility criteria, and you'll be able to find that criteria on your region's Workforce Development Board youth website, okay? And then I just want to mention too that there's an Apprenticeship Connecticut initiative, and there's been much emphasis on expanding apprenticeship opportunities across the nation, which is a terrific earn while you learn model. And our Connecticut legislators recognize the success of this model, and they've invested in this initiative to develop workforce programs to train qualified entry-level workers for jobs with manufacturing and employers with workforce shortages, which is mostly in like the trade fields. A lot of people are aging out of the trades. So these programs are run through the workforce boards again, and the industries and occupational training may vary through the different regions based on the region's needs, okay, employer needs. You will need to be registered in a youth program, and then this initiative will be part of your employment plan, and it will also provide the funding for the training. Okay, now lastly, you've heard both our presenters, Brian and Kathy, talk about the infamous Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. This is our year-round youth program that we offer, that all the boards offer. And Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, you might hear it called WIOA. We often say WIOA, so welcome to the world of acronyms. We're going down that road. But funds are provided, these are federal funds, and they're provided to the states to provide local workforce areas. Sorry, my notes got cut out with the check. I'm sorry. Every time a check comes out, I lose my notes, so I apologize. So the funds are provided, again, to the states to provide local workforce area resources to deliver a comprehensive array of youth services. So the youth services focus on assisting out-of-school youth with one or more barriers to employment. And these programs help youth prepare for post-secondary education and or employment opportunities, okay, depending on the direction that people want to go. They help the youth prepare to attain educational certifications. They work on skills training, credentials to secure employment. And we're focusing on employment with career and promotional opportunities. We're not placing people at McDonald's to get work experience. We're working on career pathways in these programs. So they serve youth ages 16 or 18, depending on region, to age 24, and they're offered, again, through the workforce development boards. Some services may be offered in the American Job Centers, and others will be offered through the contracted providers throughout the regions. But this may be a very good opportunity for our youth our young adults, I should say, coming out of transition at 21, but may feel like they need a few more years, a couple more years of a little bit more supported services, then this might be a great pathway to go down. So I mentioned that the training might vary through region, but the goal through all the regions is the same. And the goal is to provide training and employment assistance to create skilled workers to take over the jobs that are in demand today. And most of the in-demand jobs today are mid-skill level jobs that do require a degree or a certification. So that's what we're trying to help make our participants more employable, more marketable, I should say. So the goal is, again, to create pathways, not just jobs, that are going to lead to good paying jobs with substantial salaries so people can live a life of self-sufficiency. Next slide, please, Molly. Thank you. So there is an eligibility component for the WEO youth services. The services are free. The youth must be out of school and have one of the following barriers. They're in the foster care system, they have a disability, they're a young parent parenting, involved in the justice system, they left high school, maybe they're homeless or basic skills deficient, which is determined by an 8th grade level reading and math assessment, or they're an English language learner. So there is that eligibility component, okay? Also, family income information may be required, just as a heads up, to determine eligibility in some cases. Next slide, please, Molly. So across the board, the general services, even though, again, the training might be different, the general services throughout the region will include case management support, pre-employment training, such as resume preparation, interview practice, job search strategies, and soft skill trainings for getting and keeping the job. Training opportunities might be in a college setting, or they might be in-house, earning industry-recognized credentials like a ServSafe or a customer service, for example. And additionally, supportive services are available to assist with bus passes, clothing for an interview, or work attire. Maybe somebody needs steel-toe boots or scrubs, for example. Programs can assist with care for kids applications and finding a daycare if needed. Some providers offer in-house GED and high school diploma assistance. Others partner, with their local adult ed, and some offer in-house financial literacy training as well. And lastly, most importantly, the WEO youth programs provide paid work experience, job placement assistance, and a one year of retention services. So before I move on to the adult side of the house, I just want to add, and Kathy already alluded to this, that it is okay to be in another program with another agency, like BRS or DDS or DMIS, while enrolled in the WEO youth program, as long as the focus is on competitive employment. So the key is that we're leveraging our resources rather than duplicating the services. So for example, if we're doing the pre-employment preparation, we're providing the scholarship for the training, we'll partner with, like, I'll use BRS as an example, we'll partner with BRS and their staff can help us maybe with accommodations to help individuals successfully get through our programs, or accommodations that might be needed in the workplace. Maybe they can assist us with onboarding supports by providing job coach, a service that we don't have under our funding source. So that's the idea of that partnership. And there's a name that we use for this. It is a model that we use in the American Job Center system, and it's called the Integrated Resource Team, or IRT, just to throw another acronym at you. And I promise there will be no test at the end. We won't have time. So that IRT model is very important. So if you are an individual or referring an individual that is in 2 or more programs, I encourage you to let the career advisor or whoever you're working with, let them know that you're working with another agency. It's important that we all have the same job goal and the same employment plan so that we can offer the best wraparound supports to get a positive outcome. All right. Next slide, please, Molly. So let's talk about the American Job Centers, or AJCs, as we like to call them. I guess we could call these the adult services, but these services are available for all people of working age. So, and a lot of people think that we're the unemployment office, and we're actually an employment and training center. So people do not have to be unemployed to use our centers. They may be unemployed, they may be underemployed, or they simply might not like their job and want to look for a new opportunity. So all are welcome. The only eligibility, again, is to be of working age, but you do need to have proper documentation showing that you are allowed to work in the U.S., such as a Social Security card or working papers. Customers can start using the center immediately, same day upon walking into an AJC. The only thing is, we'll ask them to register at cthires.com, and then they can use the services. Or obviously we can register at CT Hires long before we come. So we offer both self-service and one-on-one services, and I'll break them down for you. I have the next slide, please, Molly. So thank you. So the self-services include career centers. All of the American Job Centers have career centers. They might be called resource libraries. They might have different names around the region, but they're centers with computers with high-speed internet. So people can use our centers to work on their job search, to work on their resume. We have career readiness workshops. So those are mostly offered in the comprehensive offices, which I'm going to get to in a couple slides from now. But we have workshops on all of them across the region, offer resume writing, job search technique, and interview technique, job search strategies and interview technique. But other regions offer more types of workshops. So I could speak for Hartford. We also offer over 40 looking for work, a LinkedIn workshop, mock interviewing. We have a couple other workshops that we offer. The career counseling one-on-one that you see on the slide, that's a tough one. Back in the day, you used to be able to just come in and say, I want to speak with somebody about employment. And it's kind of like a one and done. You'd sit down with a career counselor, with the Department of Labor staff, and they'll kind of guide you, and they're certified resume writers. They'll critique your resume writer. But now with the unemployment being what it is with the pandemic, it's kind of like all hands on deck. So I can't promise you'd be able to get a same day one-on-one counseling session. But you would be able to get resume critique by a certified resume writer. We will not type a resume, okay? So they do have to have something on paper, and they will give a critique and make suggestions on how to really make it a 21st century job search resume, okay? And we do have up-to-date labor market information, which is very important. Again, we want to know what jobs are hot, what's not, what's coming, what's going, to help people create realistic career plans. Individual employment plans. And then we have job postings. We have mailing lists that you can get on to get job leads in your regions. And we also have employer recruitment. So the employers are very much our customers as well. And they will come to us and we will provide the job seekers for them to interview for the job. So this is a really good way to get a job because sometimes if you don't target your resume properly, it might not get through the applicant tracking systems and even into the employer's lab. So this way it's a guaranteed interview for a job that you know you're perfectly qualified for. So taking advantage of the employer recruitments is something that I strongly encourage. So the comprehensive offices are open for walk-ins. There's a slide coming up on those addresses. And I did find out today that in the North Central region, our satellite offices are open for walk-ins to use the career centers. You will need to check your local workforce development boards outside of the North Central region to find out what's going on with their openings, okay? Masks are required. You may be asked to come back with an appointment if it's too crowded. They are trying to keep the numbers a little bit low. And some of the offices are doing temperature checks. So just to pre-process you on that, okay? Next slide, please. So I'll talk about the one-on-one services now. So the one-on-one services, we refer to them in the North Central region as the WIOA services, that Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act again. And these are geared towards individuals with unique circumstances, veterans, former offenders, individuals with disabilities, or newly or long-term unemployed individuals. And the program provides career readiness preparation, such as understanding the current labor market, resume and interview preparation, getting a 21st century resume, completed networking, job search strategies, and training scholarships. So our training scholarships are for short-term certifications. We are not able to support paying for an associate degree or a bachelor degree. We're doing the short-term certification, again, to help people to become more marketable for the job that they're applying for. So depending on the funding, sometimes we can just write you a training account, we call it a ITA, an individual training account. We can just write the check, and other times it's a competitive process. So it all depends on the funding about getting a scholarship for a training certification. The funds are awarded also for in-demand industry sectors. So sadly, if somebody, kind of similar to Kathy's music story, if somebody wanted a certificate for dog grooming, that's not something that we can support at this time. We have to support, again, where there's job shortages, where there's staffing shortages. So right now, our certifications are focusing on healthcare, manufacturing, IT, and construction, okay? So upon registering, people will be assigned a career advisor. This title might change. It might be a career agent, a case manager in the different regions, but they'll be assigned a career advisor, and they'll create an individual employment plan, an IEP with employment, and the IEP will determine how we navigate them through the American Job Center system. So in addition to working with a career advisor, job seekers may also work with a business service representative, and they'll assist with targeting that resume for their jobs, proofreading their cover letters, doing mock interviews, and sending job leads. So on that note, sometimes we're able to do a direct placement. However, most of the times the job seeker is responsible for applying for their own jobs. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver here during this presentation, okay? I like to use the expression that we're trying to teach people to fish so they have food for a lifetime rather than give them a plate of food. So think of us as the place that gives you the tools that they need to get the job, okay? And I need to mention that there is an eligibility component for the one-on-one adult services. So the program is for adults 18 or older, out of school, unemployed or underemployed. So they can be a dislocated worker, meaning they're long-term unemployed or they're receiving unemployment benefits. They can be a low-income adult, or they can be basic skills deficient. And again, that's determined by that 8th grade level reading and math assessment. But that said, with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've received some other funding, like CARES Act funding. So for these other funding sources that come in, they may not have these eligibility components. So I really strongly suggest that you check your local American Job Center, your Workforce Development Board, or your department or the Department of Labor websites to find out about employment and training funding. Okay, so it's really exciting, some of the things that are going on right now with this CARES Act. Lastly, I just want to say, as I mentioned in the youth services, you know, we do implement that integrated resource team model with our adult services. We probably actually do it more so on the adult side of the house. So just keep that in mind, okay? And then importantly, it's okay to transition from the youth program into the adult services, but you cannot transition from adult to youth. So it's important to understand, to really research which program might be the better fit, okay? So how to get started. Next slide, please, Molly. Sorry, and I just realized we're out of time, so I will breeze through this. Simply register on cthires.com. Once you're registered, you can use the career centers. Sometimes once you register, I know for North Central region, once you're registered, you're going to get a little pop-up that says we owe a pre-application, or now that the comprehensive centers are open, you could just go in and say, how do I get into one-on-one services? And the front desk people will be able to navigate you. It is a bit of a process getting started, but once you get in, I just want you to know that then the services do become individualized or customized if need be, reiterating that integrated resource team approach. Next slide, Molly. So these are the addresses for the comprehensive AJCs. They're called comprehensive because the Department of Labor is also located there. So there's more services offered in those areas, such as those one and done meetings, the resume critiques, the workshops, and they also do offer some unemployment assistance in the comprehensive offices. Okay, next slide. Okay, Did my turkey go? Did you hear
The
it?
turkey went. Yes, it did.
Okay, that's what I was waiting for. So this is the analogy that I like to use. If you go to a comprehensive office, you're going to get the full turkey dinner. You're going to get the turkey, the stuffing, the gravy, the mashed potatoes. You're going to get the yams, the collard greens. You're going to get the, the corn and the beans and the rolls with butter and pie a la mode. And I hope I'm not making people hungry because it's late. And with a side of ice cream and whipped cream on top. If you go to, like, say, Manchester or Torrington, you're going to get a slice of turkey and some mashed potatoes and gravy and a piece of pie, but you're not going to get the whole Thanksgiving dinner. So that's my analogy. It's important to check the sites in your region, whether it's a comprehensive or the satellite centers, and see what is the best fit for you. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Here's a bunch of resources of the things that I talked about today. Next slide. And here's my contact information coming up. Feel free to reach out to me. Even if you have a question for another region, I can help connect you with the right person. And sadly, we have run out of time for Q&A. So Molly, I guess we can check the chat. And
we can do that, and I will also be posting these resources on our website under resources, and then it will say Building a Great Life, and if you click on that, there will be a listing for employment resources, so it will be there. We could, we really have run out of time, so I think at this point I did not run through the chat on this one because I've been running the PowerPoint. If there's something that's urgent and pressing, I'm not looking at it. Do you want me to stop sharing?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so let's look and just see quickly. Age range for the apprenticeship program?
That's for the WIOA youth, so it's either 16 or 18 to 24.
Okay, and Lisa wants to know what's considered a substantial salary?
A livable wage. So, good question. We're looking for more of the at least $20 an hour type wages so people can afford to live independently or self-sufficiently.
Okay.
Without having to use public benefits.
Can a student be eligible if they are in a transition program after high school?
Yes, absolutely. As long as they're, well, yeah, that's a tricky one because technically they're not out of school. So that's a longer answer. We have started people out with like some remote things that they can start working on while they're in transition. And we could start the registration process a little bit sooner so that they're ready to slide right into it. And there's not that gap of registering, but that does get tricky there.
Okay. I think that pretty much wraps up the questions we're going to be able to cover tonight. You do have contact information, and I would encourage you to pursue these wonderful speakers. This has been a fabulous panel, so thank you to Jill, Kathy, and Brian. You've all given us a ton of information. I know Gretchen posted that her head was spinning, so is mine. That was a lot of information, so thank you so much for giving us your time and this incredible amount of resources. And Jill, thank you for pulling this panel together. Yeah. And with that, have a wonderful holiday weekend, everybody. Stay healthy. Don't forget our sessions in August 5th and August 12th on housing. And please either complete the evaluation using the link here or the one that will be sent out to you right after this session ends. Thank you so much and good night.
Thank you, everybody. Night.
Night.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Molly, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
How much?
Is the video gonna get sent out to all of us?
Well, there's a question, Linda. Video will be posted on the website once the captioning is done. The captioning that's on here isn't accurate, so it has to be corrected and fixed before it's posted, and eventually it will be. Okay?
Thank you, Molly.
All right. Good night. Good to see you, Ellen. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thanks, Marianne. Bye. Good to see you.